Hey guys, it's Dave from Countryside. This is episode 2 of FFRM, Family Farm and Ranch Manager software. It's a farm management system that I wrote. What I'd like to do today is show you a high-level overview of FFRM so that you get a feel for it. So let's get started here. Okay, so this is FFRM using an example farm. So the data you see in here is totally made up. So don't get hung up on the data itself. But basically, the way that the FFRM is organized is that you see the major data elements or data pieces of data that you can gather on the left-hand side of this home screen or this main menu for FFRM, the application itself. And then you see configuration data over here on the right-hand side. And we're going to go into that here in a little bit and show you how those two link together. The first thing I want to show you here is the actual information that we can gather on the farm or ranch. That's the highest level type thing. Everything here in um, this data file, this example data file, is all about this one farm. So this is some of the fields that you can gather for that. And as you can see here, some of the interesting features is every one of the major data elements or major data areas that you have the ability to have a linked file or website. For instance, this one here makes sense that if it's your farm and ranch, maybe you want to take a look at a survey of it. Yeah, it's going to warn you. Yeah, we'll have to get rid of that sometime. So basically, here's a survey of Joe's, my my little example. If this was a real survey, you could pop that up and actually take a look and then zoom into it. And actually, if you're reminded, hey, there's a creek over here or something going on over there, you'd actually be able to pull up the survey and take a look at it. Also ability to take notes. Those are localized notes on this particular record itself. And then there's also ability to capture documentation. Um, the three themes I want to go over today is flexibility, customizability, and lots of documentation. So the ability to document everything so that you can send that information to yourself in the future or to whoever in your family or whoever is managing your farm or ranch. Um, okay, so other things here on the farm or ranch usage. This is just some made up stuff, but maybe you're doing corn, maybe you're doing cattle. Phones, yeah, you can do contacts, you can put it on your phone and so forth. Yeah, fine. If you don't want to use this, don't use it. But if you want to, it's out there. If you need to, it's out there. It also has the ability to link in some websites, so you can put it all in one place. When you're working with FFRM, it's kind of nice to have everything right there. So if you need to use it, you can get to it. Also, the ability to keep track of farming and ranching years and fiscal years. If your operation, I would think that most of them probably go January 1st to December 31st, but it may be doing something different. If so, change it. That gets back to flexibility and customizability. Fiscal year, same thing. Most people are probably going to be January 1st to December 31st, but maybe you're doing what the government does and October 1st to September 30th. Okay, go for it. Go ahead and configure these however you want them. Configurability. Um, so that's the farm and ranch. Now I'm going to show you documentation. We got oodles and gobs of documentation and ways to document stuff. These are major documents that run throughout the application itself. The way this is laid out here, as you can see down here at the bottom, this is record number 1 of 24, so you can see how many you have out there. And let me show you something else that is used throughout this application. When it says data sheet view, that changes from, if you press this button right here, in this area, you go to form view, and you can see that down here. This is a form, so that's form view. But if you want to switch back and you want to see all 24 of your documents, you can do that, and then you can read down through them and say, oh, I'm looking for this one right here. And now that one tells you in 2003, Joe and Jan Smith purchased 40 acres. There you go. So you can keep track of stuff like that. Then you want to come down here and you want to find something else. Maybe you want to keep track of problems and incidents, lessons learned. I actually put help, FFRM help out here. It comes along with it. You download that with it. So you can actually get a mini user's manual type thing out of this. Here's some notes on some pasture vegetation, monitoring. You're doing scouting and so forth. Maybe you want to keep track of that. Whatever you want to put out there, whatever data you want to gather, whatever information you want to gather into documentation or your documents, you can put out here. Over on the right hand side is the close the form button on all these. So that's documentation. And again, some of the things, notes, lessons learned, problems and issues, incidents, root cause analysis, to-do list, if you want to put your to-do list out there, and FFRM help, and anything else actually you want to put out there. Now let's take a look here. I want to show you just a real quick thing on this configuration data. Let's say the status. This is the status of the document. Not started, ongoing, completed, postponed, and canceled. Basically, or let's take a look at priority. Urgent, high, medium, low, long term. That's just a way for you to quickly gather and put in information. Rather than type all that in, you put it in there and it's always done the same way. It's not sometimes spelled differently like I like to do. It's always spelled the same way. Where does this is called a drop down menu. Where does that come from? Well, back over here, these are the major data elements. These are the configuration data. And guess what? Over here, that drop down is right there. If you want to change those, you want to call this from high to mucho higho, or whatever you want to call it, change it. Flexibility, you can change it. Whatever you want to make it. You leave it alone or change it. You got the power. Document status, canceled, completed, not started, ongoing, postponed. You got other ones you want to put in there. And by the way, this is the order that they come up. So now this is how they display. You want to put another one there in here between 40 and 50 for something between completed and postponed. Knock your socks off. Put it out there. You got the flexibility. You can customize it. Yes, I want to save that. So let's keep on going with the major data elements so we can get this over with here on this episode. I don't want to go too long. Locations. Locations are places with addresses. Now, don't get that confused. We're going to talk about property in a little bit. This could be a location of a property, but that's okay. Locations are places that have addresses. When you pull this up, the first thing that hits you in the face here is this address. This address. That's what this is. It's locations are all about addresses. By the way, notice here, this location, it has got notes. You can also put a linked thing in here. You got a website for it. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be your property or your address. It could be the neighbor. It could be the sheriff's office. It could be the courthouse. It could be whatever you want. You could put it out there. Then you could also put a linked HTTP, www, to whatever, or you could put notes out there on it, pass that information to yourself into the future. Again, here's location type, more configuration data. These are some things you don't like it. And by the way, whenever you see one of these right next to it, you can actually get to that right there. I put that right there so you could real quick to get to those things. Um, and there's documentation. Now this is the documentation. Notice it says one of one, but really it is. You already put for Big Pasture, this location. Big Pasture was refenced in spring. using 4-inch woven wire and electric in 2018. There you go. There's the date that we did it. Now, if I'm ever trying to remember what the heck happened, I can go out and find it. Now, normally I wouldn't put a pasture in as a location. I don't think there's an address here, so I sort of violated my own rule here, but it's not really a rule, it's more like a suggestion. So if it doesn't have an address, don't put it in location. But let's go on over here to the next one. Property. Property are things that are used, utilized, usually over and over again. They may be either real property like land, buildings, fields, pastures, whatever, or personal property, tools, machines, vehicles, equipment, implements, whatever. So that's the majority of the stuff that you use over and over again. Sometimes it'll have you might have a home place on the farm that actually has an address. Then I'd go ahead and put it as a location over here. But primarily, I'd put like you probably let's pull this up. Um, okay, so there's the big pasture on Farm A. Let's go back here. Wrong button. Okay, this one right here. I've got 15 examples in this farm database. Here's a farmhouse. Okay, so I probably should go ahead and have a farmhouse address out there. So I'd put that in as a location. But this is all the information about that. And always remember, you got notes, you got links. If you want to put a scanned in file or a www internet thing, you can do that. All these drop downs, of course, are configuration data. Over here, you can get in there and configure the heck out of that, however you want to see it. And then other information about, well, the property size, the how much is actually farmed or ranched, and all that kind of stuff. Maintenance. If you want to keep maintenance notes on your property, well, it wouldn't make sense for you to have maintenance on a big pasture. Well, probably not. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe some people do. But let's go on over here to my John Deere. Well, hey, my little John Deere tractor, guess what? I got a maintenance record in here. On January the 8th, Hank Williams went out and replaced my mower deck belt. It wasn't, I screwed it up. I didn't, and then I also didn't grease it. So we'll take a look at that here in the future. So documentation. There's also can be documentation. Remember, the notes are basically quick things that are specific to this property, whereas documentation are bigger documents, things like your notes, problems and incidents, lessons learned, to do. You may have a to do on this John Deere. Maintenance notes. You may want to put your maintenance note. You can put your maintenance notes here, or you can put your maintenance notes over there, wherever you want to put it. I give you as much flexibility as I possibly can to use this tool the way you want to use it. And let's take a look how many properties we got. We got 15 properties here. You'd have obviously a lot more because you may have your fields, you may have a silo, you may have your tractors, you may have utility sheds, you may have farm road, farmhouse. The whole farm itself is a property. It's however you want to do it, whatever you want to capture, and then information about that. So that's important stuff. And then here's another way, flexibility, another way to get to your maintenance records. You can see all maintenance records for everything right here. I only got one out there, but if you had 15 on 100, on 12 different pieces of property, you could have see all 15 of those at one time. So that's your property maintenance. And that'll help you keep track of all the stuff that you're doing on maintenance. Supplies are things that are consumed, included, or used up, usually only one time. In other words, Seed. How many times do you plant seeds? Well, you use it one time. How many times do you put fertilizer out? Once. How many times do you put, uh, you know, uh, I don't know, herbicide out? Once you put it, use it once. So if it's even nails, how many times do you use a nail? Well, usually once. How many times do you, put herbicide out? How many times do you put whatever? Supplies are generally things that are used one time. They are consumed. So that's what how the difference is between supplies and property. Now, along with supplies over here, I got a list of vendors. We'll show you that in here in a second. But the supplies, I've only got, how many do I have out here? I've got, you can see these are some real ones that I had from my refencing. I love those little gripples. But here, I'm getting mine from Ken Cove. So there's some free advertising for Mr. Ken Cove. Then you not only have information about that, but another thing I want to show you here: category, class, and type. You'll see that used throughout this application. I standardized on that. You'll see category, class, and type on supplies. You'll see category, class, and type on property. You'll see it over here on products, operations, and so forth, even transactions. It's a way of categorization, but it's a standard. So I try to use that same thing: category, class, and type. Category is the high level, the middle level of class, and the type is low level. So let's go back over here and see how that works. Here, the category, class, and type of supplies is fencing, woven wire, fence building. It may be some other things. And these are just some examples I have out here. You can put whatever you want. You may even want to talk to your accountant or your bookkeeper or your farm manager or whoever, or talk to yourself and find how the heck you want to organize this thing. And notice, if you don't want three levels of organization or three levels of categorization, as they refer to it in IT, is you could just do two levels: general supplies, parts. That's all I want to know. General supplies. I mean, you could just probably, an accountant might manage you, but you could just say this is general supplies. But general supplies, parts. Okay, the pretty much most of the bookkeepers will be able to figure that out. General supplies, materials, livestock, feed, livestock, supplements, livestock. So you could also have things out here: supplies, crops. You could have uh, seed, you could have fertilizer, you could have uh, herbicide, whatever you need. You could put the supplies out there as well. Um, Now, the use type for this one here, this obviously is fencing. I like these use types because now, if it's just another way of organizing data so I can get to it. So if it was something to have to do with crops, I'd have crop production there. Or if it had something to do with living type stuff, or watering, if it's pond type stuff, or well, it'd be water. That's how you can organize these things. Um, the supply status. Basically, it's how you want to use this. If you don't want to go hog wild with it, don't go hog wild with it. If you want to, if you got a big operation, you can use this for a big operation. On-hand number, estimated usage number, maybe that's per whatever, per month, per year, whatever. Estimated, you standardize on that and then use it however you want to. You may want to have your own SOPs. You may want to say, okay, I'm going to always call this the estimated number per year. And then I'm going to put at the beginning of the year, I want to get so many of these out here. And if I've only got zero, I don't have enough. Whether that's seed, whether that's fertilizer, whether that's treats for your sheepies, whatever. Estimated usage frequency. Here you go. Last inventory date, next inventory date. Keep track of all that, and then we can have reports. You can print those out, and you can show the ones where you've got things coming up. Calculate auto replenish. This is something I have out here. I'm thinking about it, and it's the data element is there. We can add it if people want it in the future, but basically a way to put out a report or something to say, yeah, we need to replenish these parts. So it's stubbed in, ready to go for that if you want to use it that way, and we want to go ahead and add it. Um, Replenish number. If you want to replenish, and you got 50, and you replenish 20 at a time. That's how you do it, and maybe you do it every quarter or every week or whatever. It's whatever it is. Last replenished date. Those are the type of things you put in there. Sources, like last time you bought a particular thing, model number, brand, purchase date, quantity. And that way, this is not really a financial record. It's more for you to keep track. Where did I buy this stuff? I know I tend to buy stuff from the same people. And if I I go out here and I put that in, then I say, oh yeah, I bought these from Kenco. No, I bought that from Premier One, or I bought that from somebody else, Tractor Supply or Rural King. And documentation. Everything's documented. If you want to put particular documentation about cripples, knock your socks off. Go ahead and talk about here I had this problem with them, or I had this great experience with them. Yeah, put it out there. Big stuff, important stuff. That's what you want to document. Um, let's keep on going here. Vendors, you got your, whole bunch of vendors. I left some out there. These are some of the folks actually I use, and then some other ones out there. I made some up like Paul's Tools and so forth. Those are some vendors. You can get again your supplies configuration data. Those are your drop down, so you standardize your data. Now, if you are doing crops and growing crops, you probably may not have any animals. Just ignore that. If you're doing a ranch, this is probably going to be the big part of what you're doing right over there. So it's again, FFRM is designed to be as widely used as possible, farm and ranch. So mainly for the folks who have animals, and that could be even the farmers out there that are growing crops that also have a few cattle or whatever. Animals, and then this right here is probably going to make people either laugh or throw up or something, but that's okay. I went back and forth on flock versus herd. Flurred. Okay, so there we go. I decided on flurds, and I actually went to the Google machine and looked it up. And hey, they talk about other people's, and when they combine things that are flocks and herds, they call them flurds. So that's what I standardized on. And that's simply a group of animals. So don't get wrapped around the axle on that. Flurd is just a group of animals. But it's an important grouping because it helps you to see things. So let's take a look at the animals. Birth, farm, gender, all these things are out here. Father, mother. And I'm going to show you here in just a second. You keep the track of the tag numbers of the father or the mother, the registration, if they're registered, they got papers. Acquire and disposal. When did you buy? If you bought it, it doesn't probably wouldn't put anything here. If I guess you could, because you could put birth, and then that's something with born on the farm, or you purchased it, or you traded it, or somebody gifted it to you, or you found it. There was a cow walking down the street and you decided to give it a home. Um, Disposal date, disposal type. How did you dispose of it? Sold, traded, died. That's what happens, when you got animals. Gifted, lost, stolen. Maybe you want to add one in here, ran away because it, wanted to live somewhere else. I don't know. Put whatever in here you want. It's configurable back in that configuration data. And then you got animal health data. So this, you actually, you see how this is grayed out here? It's for reference only, but it's all health data that comes from either the animal health record or the FLIRD health record. And I'll show you that in just a second. And then I got documentation. Again, documentation. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But I suggest you do the big stuff and the important stuff. So that's the animals, and I've got 35 of them in here. So that's pretty good. So we're going to go back to here, and we're going to close this. And now we're going to look at my flirts. And actually, I have two flirts, a flock, and my LGDs. So anyway, we got LGDs. You can keep track of those guys. And then you also got your, let's see here. If I want to come over here and I want to take a look at my real flock. So this is Farm A cattle, but I actually based this on my sheep. So here's Farm A cattle herd. Um, Grazing. If you want to set up a rotational grazing, what data elements do you need for that? Well, estimated start and end date, and then actual start and end date, the condition when you started, and the condition when you ended. Preparation and a description. Need to, if you need to install some divider fences, temporary stuff, whatever. Who's going to do it? What status is it? Is it planned? Is it in progress? Was it completed or canceled? And then notes. Okay, I did this one for 3 days. It's a toss up as to whether this is too much information or not. But if your rotation schedule is every, twice a day, you're probably not going to document the crap out of this thing. But if your rotation schedule is more like a week at a time or 3 days at a time, it may not hurt to do that. Or let's say it's 2 weeks at a time. I don't know, whatever you're doing. Yeah, I'm not judging. Whatever your rotation schedule is for your farm or ranch, you can put it in here and keep track of it. If it's not too ungodly amount of, too much data, feel free to put it in here in your flood grazing rotational grazing data, and then document the heck out of it. Whatever's happening with the flood. This is notes that are particular to this flood. I'm sorry. This is notes that are particular to this flood itself, but the documentation, you could have a whole bunch of documentation on that is based around this flood right here. And it would basically tell you all a story about, this flock or this herd or whatever during these years. So that's some really good information to capture. Um, so what are the flood summaries? Well, let's say here you want to keep track. How many do I got? And that's something that I've been struggling with is, okay, we're going from year 2021. Then we started with 0, we added 5, and then we got year 2, which is 2022. We started with the 5, we bought 6, 5 were born, we're up to 13, and then year 3, we're in that now. We started with 13. We 17 were born. Haven't bought any yet this year. But so we're up to uh, 30 minus 2, and I don't have that in here, but I actually sold 2 rams. So now we're down to this would be 30 minus 2 is 28. So I can keep track as long as I got something like this to help me keep track. This is documentation based on the farm year. So you can say, okay, this farm year, this is what happened. This is why we did these things. We did a bunch of culling this year, or we added a bunch this year, whatever. Um, let's see. If you want to take a look at ancestor views, okay, so how does this work here? Well, you got 4 generations, generation 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it all is keyed off of the tag numbers. And if I go down here to Tiny Tim, you can see here's Tiny Tim. His generation 2, the female, which would be the mother, is Leah. The father is Clyde. And then generation 3, this would be mother's mother. mother's father, father's mother, and father's father. So now there's three generations. And by the way, you can get them down here now. The only reason why this is not all filled out is because those are actually from animals that were off our farm. So, this is actually the first one of the first ones we bought right there. This is actually it was a sheep, not Texas Longhorn. I kind of changed the data, but um, yeah, I think he was actually born in 2021. Now his parents were down here, and so we go four generations, and that'll help you out. It's already helped me out quite a bit. We decided on a culling protocol here this year based on me taking a look at that. We couldn't remember some things. And by the way, this negative positive, you can take a look here. If you've got major negative things going on, for instance, this guy right here, that's good reason to call. And if you take a look back, where does that come from? You take a look back here in the animals, your negative factors and your positive factors. And I give you a way here, and you can customize this. You can make it's as flexible as you want, change it, whatever you want to do, or just leave it what I got it, the way I set it up. But and that way you can, if something is really positive going on and something's really negative going on, you'll be able to see them right here. You'll be able to see it over there in the generation charts. Now, if you're here, let's say Huckleberry, let's pick a different one. Let's go to Little Orphan Annie. She's our bottle baby, actually. And her father was Luke. Well, if I want to go to the father and look at his information. Boom. Now we're up here looking at Luke. And now, okay, now I can see all the information about Luke. And I want to see Luke's father is Huckleberry. Huck was a good boy. So there you go. That's how that works. Um, I haven't done this one yet, Descendants View, but we're going to do that. I'm going to do that because my wife is telling me I got to do it. So I got to do it. um, Descendants are going to be you start with just like this one here. You start with an animal and you go backwards. This goes down. Down is backwards. Well, I'll do the same kind of thing. It has to be a different format. I got to think about that, but it's basically going to be from back to front instead of front to back. So it'll be starting at an ancestor and who are all the descendants. If I started with Huckleberry down here, I'd want to see all of his children and I want to see all of his great grandchildren and great, generation two, generation three, generation four. I'll do at least four generations if I maybe more if I can get it in a format that looks good. So that's coming soon. Again, you got to keep mama happy. So I'll be working on that. Health data, animal health records. Okay, so if you got information about one particular animal, there you go. Illness, it could be an illness, it could be a diagnosis, it could be an injury, whatever's going on here, or just preventative. They're just your thoughts. And then the status, the start date, end date, usually those are going to be the same, may not be, may have taken a week for him to recover or died, who knows what. The priority of that, if it was just a little boo boo on the leg, or was it, partially amputated, whatever. Um, I left this in here. This is actually, you guys know that if you have sheep, you know that the FAMACHA is, I believe, a sheep thing. But I also put some other things in here. Body condition scores. Those are for cattle also, and a custom condition. You decide what you want to do. If you want to put something, you want to create your own scoring mechanism for how you want your genetics to be managed in your herd or your flock. Go ahead, knock your socks off. Go back here in the custom scoring, change it however you want, and then keep track of it. And that is a great way for you. And then we'll have reports. You can print them out and you can see exactly who's got what custom score. And that'll help you with, okay, I breed this one more or I should call these more, or call them. You don't call them more, just call them. Also, with the health records, you got your symptoms, your diagnosis, your treatments, medicine, and response type. And then, response type is vaccinated, negative change, positive change, healed, died, or whatever. Again, you're working with sheep. And then who did it? Which one of your people was? If it's only you, then we'll kind of know you don't even have to do this. It's only you. But if you got helpers, you got family members that are helping, you might want to keep track because, by the way, little Bobby, did this. And I want to remember that Bobby did that so I can go ask him for questions later on. Flirt's the same thing, but if you had to do that for, if you're going to your herd and you were give them all shots, for the year, uh, and 50 of them, my God, you don't want to come out here and do 50 of these records. So what you do is you do one of these and you list a bunch of them, and you could do a whole bunch right here real quick just by going down here and saying, okay, I did this one and I did that one right there and Spot and Little Orphan Annie and whatever, and boom, there you go, you're done. That's a nice quick way of doing a whole bunch of them at one time. And then again, who did it? If I've done things, maybe you had four different people helping you with going through the herd at one time, giving shots for the year. So that there you go. Anything involved with the health or the animal, you could document in here. Let's keep it going here. Product. So now what do we have? We have the farm itself. We have the inputs, and I consider the animals to be input because they either get born or you buy them or whatever. So they're on the input side of your farm, your ranch operations. And then there's the products, and the products are the output. And I'll talk about product cycles here in just a second. And then there's the operations. And what are the operations? Those are the actions that you take to do stuff. And I'll show you that in just a second too. So products are the things that are produced from or by the farm or ranch. The output of the farm or ranch includes your product inventory. Okay. So here you go. You're producing longhorn cattle on this one. And let's say you're also producing corn. There you go. And again, category, class, and type, crops, corn, bent corn. Uh, you can keep track of your varieties. You got varieties from a particular genetics, source or whatever. You can get that in here. Product, breed, if it's a particular animal, a variety for a particular vegetation, brand if it's from one particular company that's got the genetic patent or whatever, model numbers if it's that I don't know if it may be a model number associated with particular variety of corn or something. And then keep notes on it, and then inventory. Okay, so just because you produce something this year doesn't mean you're going to sell it all. You may put it in a silo and you may wait till next year. So if you do, you can keep your inventories out there. The status, the condition, inventory property, all that stuff is out there and available for you to keep track. And then documentation. Again, document the heck out of everything. If big and important information, document the heck out of it. And this, let's see, why did this come out here? This has to do with the product is sweet corn. So it pulled this documentation in because it was associated with my sweet corn product. And that's the way this works, is you may have a bunch of documentation out there on various things that it's associated with various things. It may be associated with a property, it may be associated with a product, it may be associated with a resource. You can pull it up and see if it's associated. All right, let's keep going here. Product cycle, product inventory, you saw that before. This is all of them. And then you can go product by product and see the inventory for each one. Product cycles, periods of time when products of the farm are produced. Okay, so it's a lot easier to talk about crops. Everybody knows the growing season. You got a growing season for corn. It's sometime in the spring to sometime in the fall, that sort of thing, depending on the place in the country you are or whatever. So your product cycles are basically that. So here's like this one right here. I'd call this the 2023 cattle. So there you go. I didn't put that in there, but there's my cattle for this year. And let's say I wanted to also have another one, sweet corn. Okay, so now this is 2023 sweet corn. Yep, there you go. So now there's your sweet corn. Estimated start from April 30th to September. This is just made up dates. Don't go crazy. And then here are your estimated and your actual product um, metrics. And this is a good word for that, metrics. Estimated product is 170 bushels per 1 acre. And number produced on the estimated size is for this particular product cycle, 1,700 bushel at produced 11,050. Okay. And then at the end, you can go back and you can say, well, this was my actual. I did this rate, maybe 180 or 160, whatever. And this is how many resource hours. You can estimate the resource hours, the supplies dollars, the outsourcing dollars, if you're paying somebody else to do some of this stuff for you. And then how much did you actually make? How many were produced? How many units? How many, so that keeps track of all that if you put it in. The resources, you can say, well, this person here worked, 8 hours for me, and that was on the actual side. And by the way, they only worked really 7 hours because Hank's a pretty good worker. So there's there at the end of the product cycle, you can say, well, you estimated 8 and you only did 7. Give them a bonus of a sweet D or something. Um, Animals, okay. If your product cycle is about animals but not about crops, you can talk about it that way. You can put that in there, and you can say Miss Gia, she was, maybe she was sold, so that could be an output right there. Keep track of those. If you want to document the fact that the flirt, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure why you'd want to put that flirt in there, but if you need to, it's available. So maybe your product was a flock of chickens, or maybe if your flirt is a group of animals, maybe your output is a flirt, if you will, of fish or a flirt of geese or whatever. That could be the whole kit and caboodle right there. Locations, if there's locations involved with the product, maybe if you don't need it, don't put it down. If you do need it, if you want to document it, it's there. It's flexibility is the key thing. The properties that are involved, you can put your tractors involved, the field is involved, the silos involved. Supplies. I didn't put a lot down here, but you could put seed. If it's sweet corn, I know it's seed, it's fertilizer, it's herbicide, whatever. You could put all those, and you could put the number of units. Supplies number estimated, and then the actual. So maybe you estimated, I don't know, half a ton, and you only used, maybe you needed 1,100 pounds. I don't know. Whatever you're going to put down there, you can put down the actual as well as the estimated. Then you can learn from that, and that's an important thing. Is by getting the information down and then looking at it afterwards, you can learn, and your estimating can get um, better, and you'll find ways of improving your operations. These are the operations. Now, we haven't talked about that yet, but operations are the actions that take place. For instance, cultivating, planting, harvesting. And those are, when you talk about a product cycle, now you talk about multiple actions that can take place for that. And then documentation. Document the heck out of everything if you can. What is, again, operations? Activities or actions to create a product or to maintain or operate a farm or a ranch. It could be a standalone operation, an activity, basically do maintenance on the farm road, one time shot. Okay, there you go. Or as we just saw with our corn example, you're going to get your planting, your fertilizing, your herbicide, your harvesting, and so forth. Taking it to market, just whatever you do, you can put operations down there, and then you can plan them out. And you can plan them out. Um, you can connect them to products right here, and you can connect the operations to product cycles. So product operations to product cycle and product cycles to operations. More flexibility and customizability for you. Um, your operation, again, you got category, class, and type. Here's output livestock selling. Let's see if we got enough. Yeah, we got some more out there. Input crops cultivation. Here's input crops planting, output crops harvesting. You can see by grouping them by product cycle, then by categorizing the operation, it makes it pretty clear, even to an outside observer, what the heck your operation is all about. It creates a data model of the inputs, the outputs, and the actions that take place on your farm or ranch. So that's how that works. And then the properties that are involved in that operation, that one operation, supplies that are involved in this one operation, and so forth. Yeah, you got your supplies, your property, the animals. If it's the operation may involve animals, it may be for an animal, it may be you can list the animal itself, and so forth. And then for the operation, you can say who's going to do it. You want Kenny Loggins to come out here, and you're estimating he's going to work 16 hours on this operation. Knock your socks off. There you go. All right, so trying to get through here and get you guys out. Monitoring data, trying to have a catch-all mechanism for monitoring. And I worked in one of the biggest utilities in the United States. We did a heck of a lot of monitoring of all kind of stuff. And I know that on my farm, I monitor things. Your farm, you probably do scouting and so forth. This is just a way to package all of the monitoring data together so you can be in one place. And however you want to do a monitor, you could basically it could be a survey, it could be monitor like this right here for corn, whatever you need to do. This is this is metadata on the monitoring itself, the frequency, the interval, and so forth. That all the different ways that you can categorize and um, uh, package that up so you know from a metadata standpoint what that is. Then here's the actual data. And then you could very easily set this up so that you could grab it from machines that are doing monitoring. Maybe it's a weather center. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe you have whatever. If you're doing scouting, there are different ways to do that. And if you got lessons learned on this monitoring, go ahead and knock your socks off here. Put your lessons learned, put your to-dos, put your notes out there, problems, incidents involved with monitoring. And then links. Maybe you have maybe this is for a monitoring a small weather center that you put on your barn, and here's the link to that for the website. Um, Last thing I want to show you transactions. Transactions are financial transactions, any action involving money. So purchases, sales, trades, losses, capital investments, removals, and so forth. This is for the bookkeepers and the CPAs and your tax guys. But it's also for you. I learned some things myself. On my farm, I went back and I have a pretty good system of capturing every transaction so that I put that for tax purposes in a folder. And I was able to take that and put those all in. I had well over 300 of those going back 6 years because we did a lot of capital and investment for refencing, and that's all capital, and your accountant can tell you all about that. But basically, I put a whole bunch of that out there, and then there's 64 out here for basically the example purposes. But let me show you a couple that I did here. If I go, these are some of the ones that I just put in. Your financial transactions can be, what is this one? This is revenue. Okay, here went out and sold 10,000 bushel corn to the co-op. So there you go. And by the way, what I always do, everything is documented in my farm, and I scan everything in, and I have my system of, and I'll show this on a different video, my system on on scanning and records. But basically, yeah. This is just an example here, but here this could be your receipt. So you scan it in and you give it a name so that it's very easy to find in the folder. You put one folder out there for all FFRM transactions for your farm. You got, okay, here's the date for my farm, here's who you bought it from, here's the amount. This was a revenue, and here's a quick description. That description goes right up here. There you go. So I did that here on this example. Here's one, another example here, woven wire for field to fence in field 5 because the critters were eating stuff. Okay, so there you go. This, this is the vendor here was Dan's Fencing, bought it for $300. Here's another one, Paul's Tools, bought $100 a saw for the farm. You get the idea. And each one of these can be a link out here, and you actually see the actual receipt. So if you have a question about it, you can actually go back and see it right from this application. That's a pretty doggone good system. Let's take a look here. I don't know if I have any resources applied. Let's say for the first one here, this was the sale 10,000 bushel of corn right here. Resources, maybe I want to say that Hank Williams and Willie Nelson all helped me on this, so that'd be 50% on that one and 50% on that one. So I could just say, what does that 50% means? It means whatever you want it to mean. If it's sale of services, for instance, if you're doing custom grazing or you're doing custom harvesting, or whatever you're doing for other folks, I mean that may be the amount of the sale allocated to that person. Here it could just be these two people helped you out, and maybe you want to just keep track of how much work they did. I don't know. It's whatever you want to do. It's flexible and it's customizable. The locations, if there's an address involved, property, if it's an actual property, this actually it came from Silo One, so I want to probably keep track of that. Supplies, didn't need any supplies. Maybe you could put down a big tractor. Maybe you need a big truck. That could be part of the property here. Supplies, if you need supplies to do this, I don't know what you would need for moving 10,000 bushel, but you might have gasoline or something like that. Animals, nothing involved with this one. Products on this one here, it'd be sweet corn. There you go, because it was in inventory. And there's your operation. The operation was selling. So now you can document that. There you go. And any documentation that you want to do, you can document the heck out of it. So that's your transactions. And the last and final thing I'm going to show you here, I'm going to get more into it when we talk about how we have a data file for each farm. Everything that I just showed you is associated with this farm, Farm A right here. Everything. It's all in one place. Now, if I have another farm and if I want to separate them out, I can do that. If I want to put them all together, I can do that. Flexibility, customizability, whatever you want to do. But if I want to have another one, I can do that too. And for instance, you connect to this farm database, and it's as easy as doing this. I come on over here, and there's my file where I keep all of my FFRM data files. And I have another one out here. It's called Ranch B, and I also have the blank master. You'll get a copy of that. That's blank. In other words, it's empty, so you can start putting your stuff in for your farm, and then you'd rename this to, instead of blank master, hopefully you call it farm whatever, your farm, Joe's farm, whatever. You'd rename that, as long as you keep the first part of it here the same. Everything that's lowercase you can change, except for this last thing, ACCDB. You leave that alone too. And I'll go through that in another video. But let's say I want to change to Ranch B. I do that. It links. I come on over here. I just happen to have the uh, same example users, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, always the same on my examples. But now I'm over here on Ranch B. So maybe I have a farm and a ranch. I want data on both of them. I want to manage both of them. You can do that. Here's all the stuff on Ranch B. Here's all your transactions. Here's all your products. Let's see, what did I put in here? I probably kept them the same. Yeah, this one is a ranch, so it just has Longhorn, Texas Longhorn cattle. Uh, and basically, this again, if you're on the ranch side of the Family Farm and Ranch Manager, you're probably going to be real heavy over here on animals and the FLIRD data and so forth. But you may have some other stuff too. You'll definitely have products, which is your animals. You have property and supplies, so it's all used, and it just used a little bit differently, whether it's crops or animals. But it's basically made to be flexible so that it's useful for all of it. I'm running up to an hour here, and that's probably enough for one day. Um, I'll go more in depth into all this stuff at some point. Maybe I don't know which ones. This was a pretty good overview. I know I'm going to go more in depth on the admin side over here, especially some things, putting in your customer ID and license key. If you notice down here, this is a little bit annoying. It's meant to be. Pay the $50 and that goes away. So, when you pay the $50, then it becomes license mode, and it's just one color, and it don't blink every 3 or 4 seconds. So that's just the way that works. Um, and let's see what else. That's about enough. It's almost an hour now. I think that's. If you want to know a little bit more about FFRM, you can get to our website by clicking on that. And that's about it. Um, I hope this was not too long. I know it was a lot for folks, but dang, you got a good overview of the application. If you were on the fence about using this, hopefully you see that it's flexible, it's customizable, and it documents the heck out of everything, or it gives you the ability to document the heck out of everything. Um, and I hope you found this enjoyable, and I hope you stand by here. As usual, at the end of each episode, I have a little encore, a little a family farm video that I put in. So I hope you enjoy that. Anyway, take care. Thank you so much, and have fun.